Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is sealed in the moon fairy tale. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. And check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The Heir of the God. Konoha, weary and weakened, a woman with long blonde hair, slowly stalked her way in a single direction, her mind in a trance-like state as she walked forward. The woman in question was, for lack of better words, a goddess with a curvaceous figure that didn't seem possible for any normal woman. Even her choice of fashion further elevated her beauty, as she wore a loose kimono with fur lining on the top, while also having flower designs all over it, as well as zigzag patterns on its edges. Yet her most striking feature was the hood, which covered her head and was adorned with an upward crescent moon with a gem on top, as well as a pair of wings on each side. Though one might ask who this woman was. Or maybe ask why said woman seemed to be in such a vulnerable state. The answers to these questions were quite simple, as the woman wasn't actually a woman in the conventional sense. No, she was one of the 5 dragon gods known as Selene, the dragon that crosses dimensions. A powerful creature who was currently in a weakened state due to just giving birth to the child cradled within her arms. The child was her son Naruto, who she had conceived with a man from this dimension named Minato Namikaze. A man who had unintentionally stolen her heart and made the cold and ruthless dragon actually care for a human. A race which she had believed for centuries to be a nuisance and served as nothing more than a form of entertainment. Yet Minato was different from any human she had encountered before. He was strong, kind, and above all else loved her unconditionally despite knowing the truth about her. Selene had to admit she never intended to fall for a human or even give birth to another child. However, instead of having her fun within this dimension and leaving, Selene found herself slowly building a life here with Minato. Unfortunately, as the weakened dragon stopped walking and looked at the ground, her chest tightened. Since laying on the ground in a pool of blood was her lover and father of her child. Why? Selene asked in a hollow voice as she hovered over the body of the man she loved. The Hokage's duty is to protect everyone. A shallow wheeze escaping Minato's lungs, the man slowly reached up with his hand toward Selene and Naruto. Can I see our son? Lowering herself softly onto the ground by Minato's side, Selene adjusted Naruto carefully enough so the man could see the newborn. He has your eyes. Minato let a bloodly smile slip as he rested his hand onto Naruto's tiny body. But he has his mother's beauty, Minato began before coughing up some blood. I'm sure he will be a ladies' man one day. Selene, I don't have long, so let me apologize. I won't be there for you and Naruto like I promised I would, so I hope you can forgive me. Here's building up with the eyes of the dragon revered as a god. Selene shook her head. Don't apologize to me, love, I should have protected you. Now don't blame yourself, you were busy giving birth to our son. Just please take care of each other. Minato, you know the moon is especially beautiful tonight. Minato gasped out as his blurry vision gazed upwards. Selene gritted her teeth as the moon dragon god, she was always drawn to the moon. Yet for once she had to disagree with Minato as she couldn't find anything beautiful about the situation. I love you both. Minato declared before drifting off as the sound of his heartbeat became silent to Selene's heightened hearing. I love you too. Selene whispered in a low voice while the woman could hear the sound of footsteps approaching from behind. So recollecting herself and holding Naruto close to her chest, she quickly prepared for anything. Selene. The voice of the third Hokage Hiruzen spoke up. I'm sorry. Minato died a hero's sacrifice. Turning around to face the man, Selene observed that the aged leader was also holding a newborn child. Yet the small bundle within his arms was a tiny little reed. I'm in no mood for your pity, human. Selene shot back with venom in her voice as she stood tall to face the man. Noticing a member of the village's Anbu standing behind Hiruzen while holding a deceased woman who smelt like the child the Hokage was holding. We all lost something today, Selene, and I understand your anger, but if Minato hadn't sealed the Kikbi within this child in my arms, then more lives would have been lost. And if you could have held back the beast long enough so I could recover from childbirth, then I could have killed the so-called Kikbi myself. Hiruzen kept a steady resolve and merely locked eyes with the powerful dragon. What's done is done, but now I must know. What are your plans now that Minato has passed? Gazing up to the sky and watching the moon carefully, Selene didn't have to think of a response for long. The moon in this dimension used to always allure me with its beauty, but now it's just an empty reminder of what I've lost tonight. So I'll be taking my son back to my home dimension so we can live in peace. And that's all? Hiruzen asked in a cautious tone as he knew of the dragon god's power along with her wrath. If you're afraid of me doing anything nefarious, I'm actually insulted human. Minato died protecting this village, so I will simply take my leave as there is nothing here to keep me and my son within this dimension. I understand, but you do know you're always welcome within this village. Hiruzen replied, which didn't earn much of a reaction from Selene. Don't expect to see me again, human. Selene replied before turning away and holding her hand outward. Acquire. Selene called out before creating a portal in the air beside her and walking through with her son still in her arms. 8 years later, I want to leave. The voice of Naruto roared in defiance as his deep blue eyes glared upwards with unwavering conviction. Folding her arms and scowling, Selene flashed a few of her sharp dragonic teeth in anger. And I've already told you 1,000 times, you're forbidden from leaving this temple. You can't keep me locked in here forever. Naruto challenged with vigor, showing he wasn't afraid of his mother. I can and I will. Selene fired back as she cracked the floor with a small amount of her magical power. Trying her hardest to intimidate her child. Why? Naruto yelled loudly as he spiked his own magical power, making smaller cracks in the ground like his mother. Because I'm not going to lose you as well. But I'm a moon dragon like you. I'm strong. Naruto yelled back as Selene snarled at the blonde's words. Since it was true that Naruto, unlike any child she had given birth to before, had inherited her type of magic, making him incredibly strong. However, Selene was smart enough to know she wasn't invincible, and Naruto was far from her level of power. And what would happen if another dragon god or Magnolia found you? Selene yelled loudly as she stomped her foot onto the ground. I'm not afraid of them. You should be. Selene roared loudly as her voice started to shake the temple. They are dragons that rival my power. Or do you think you've grown stronger than me? No, then stop arguing with me. Selene cut in with absolute authority as she crossed her arms and turned her back to her son. Gritting his teeth and accepting defeat, Naruto lowered his head. Fine, but can you at least show me some new magic? Selene lifted her brow and looked over her shoulder. And what of the spell I already showed you? Holding his hand out, Naruto merely allowed a bright white flame to ignite within his palm. I've already got this one down. Smirking at the small display, Selene couldn't argue her son's natural talent. So you're able to use moonlight flame. I would be impressed if you weren't my own flesh and blood. Allowing the flame to disappear, Naruto looked up to his mother with an eager expression. Well, if you won't let me leave this temple, how about you train me some more? Make me a proper moon dragon. Selene hummed as she brought a finger to her cheek and thought over her son's request. Normally she would teach him a few things here and there to keep his attention away from leaving, but Naruto did show incredible potential. So it was a rather alluring idea to train Naruto in everything she knew. I can't argue that having another moon dragon of my strength would be very helpful for my future plans. Oblivious to his mother's rather ominous tone, Naruto was more than excited to at least learn more about his magic. So you'll finally be serious in training me? A wide-toothy grin gracing her lips, Selene slowly nodded her head. Only if you promise to always listen to me and never question your mother ever again. Yeah, okay, sure. Naruto replied quickly, which didn't sit right with Selene. No, that won't do. I want you to actually be sincere or I won't show you any more magic. Rolling his eyes in annoyance, Naruto nodded. Okay, fine, I promise I will always listen and not question you. Good. Selene began as she started to walk away. In that case, let's get started on learning some real magic. Quickly running after his mother with excitement pumping throughout his body, Naruto was already forgetting about wanting to escape the temple and explore the outside world. As his young track mind was completely focused on becoming a powerful dragon like his mother. 4 years later, Naruto aged 12. Sitting in a large traditional hot spring, Naruto rested his back against a large stone as his eyes gazed up to the large moon in the sky overhead. Feeling a sense of ease as the warm water soothed his body while the moon left him feeling completely relaxed. Lord Naruto, would you like more to drink? A soft voice asked, which made Naruto glance to the side. Observing one of his mother's followers holding a tray of sake. Reaching out and accepting a cup from the woman, Naruto gave a friendly smile. Thank you. The young dragon replied, showing his kindness and manners. It's my pleasure. The follower declared as she stepped back. Taking a small sip of the sake, Naruto savored the flavor as he had developed a small taste for the stuff thanks to his mother. As daily bathing in sake was a frequent habit of Selene's that she had passed down onto her son. So tell me, Naruto. The voice of Selene spoke up, which caused Naruto to look across the hot spring to his mother. Who was casually sipping on her own sake and submerged into the water. What do you think of this sake? It's good. Naruto replied as he lifted his brow. But it's not the usual sake you drink. I can taste a distinct difference. That's a good observation, it's sake I have kept over the years. Selene informed as she seemed to gaze off to the side. It originated from your father's home village, in fact this was his favorite sake. This information grabbed Naruto's attention. It was rare for Selene to ever mention his father, and when she did so it was in very small details. In honesty, the only things Naruto knew of his father was his name and that he was dead. You don't talk about dad much. Naruto spoke up softly as he tried to see if he could get anything from his mother. No, I don't. Selene replied in a rather bland and monotone voice. Would you like to? Naruto asked, which did earn his mother's attention. I mean, I know dad's name and that he was a human from a different dimension, but I don't really know much else. What was he like? Was he strong? Kind? How did he fall in love with a dragon god? I want to know more about him. Sighing to herself and motioning for her followers to leave, Selene slowly walked over to Naruto and quickly took a seat by her son. Then as they were alone both mother and son gazed up at the moon. Minato was very kind. Selene began, which surprised Naruto as she was actually speaking about his father. You definitely inherited my looks and powers, but without question your kindness comes from your father. It was always something I couldn't comprehend. What do you mean? I had traveled to your father's dimension 14 years ago in a time when all the lands were engaged in a bloody battle called the Third Great Shinobi War. At this time I was just enjoying myself and had made my own temple within one of the lands locked in the conflict. As such I quickly found the war knocking on my new doorstep and I threw myself into the war in retaliation. Selene explained as Naruto now found himself completely absorbed in his mother's tale. But my powers, it was quite easy for me to annihilate any human who was foolish enough to challenge me. Yet one day when I was ambushed by a group of warriors from a village called Iwa your father appeared. He didn't know at the time I was powerful enough to defend myself, but he jumped forward without hesitation and slayed every enemy within the area. It was an incredible display of power for a human that instantly grabbed my attention, but that wasn't what created my interest with your father. Then what was it? It was his kindness, as I had watched him ruthlessly and brutally kill those humans. However, when the battle was over he suddenly displayed compassion and regret for those who had been killed. It was such an odd thing to witness. An overwhelming slaughter that was over in seconds, but the one responsible was such a kind-hearted person. It was a strange thing to see and made me interested in learning more about your father. So because he caught my interest I followed him from that day forward. Fighting for his village and watching as he quickly became a hero and leader of his village. Not much longer after that the war had come to an end and I ended up pregnant with you. Then. Well, I think you know how the story ends. Dad sounds like he was a really amazing person. Selene nodded in response. I have never cared for a human let alone loved one as much as I loved your father. Naruto smiled and looked at his mother. You know we should talk more about Dad. I've never seen your eyes with so much life in them. Taken off guard by her son's words, Selene didn't even realize it, but she was at ease talking about Minato. Something she thought she would never be able to do. Maybe, but don't get your hopes up. I just feel sentimental today. You know maybe one day I'll find love like you and Dad did. Then I can tell you all about her and you can tell me more about Dad. Laughing and pressing her hand onto her son's head, Selene ruffled Naruto's hair at his comment. Please your mommy will chew up and swallow any little girl that even thinks about trying to have a relationship with you. Naruto rolled his eyes. First I can't leave the temple and now I can't even have a girlfriend. You're not overbearing at all. A tick mark appeared on Selene's forehead as she started to put more and more pressure onto Naruto's head. Making the blonde slowly sink into the water. Don't get smart with your mother brat. Flailing his arms and trying to fight back, Naruto quickly found his mother's hair and tugged on the woman to bring her down with him. An action that quickly led to the mother and son dragon duo getting a little destructive with their magic and frustration, but this was a normal occurrence for the two that many within the temple just accepted. 6 years later, Naruto age 18. Standing with his arms crossed and not even sweating, Naruto looked around the area that had shown clear signs of a serious battle. If the one-sided ass-kicking that Naruto just gave to his mother's elite squad could be considered a battle. Sorry Yako, Hakyun and Mimi, but I've decided I'm gonna finally explore the world and you can't keep me here anymore. Naruto explained to his mother's elite squad known as the Moonlit Beauty Gods. Yet all three women were completely unconscious from the swift battle with the young blonde. Oh? A hollow voice spoke from behind Naruto, which made Naruto freeze and slightly sweat. Is that so Naruto? And tell me, who gave you permission to leave the temple? Tightening his fists and slowly turning around, Naruto was met with a rather displeased gaze of his mother. I'm sorry mom, but I'm sick of always staying locked in this temple. I want to go out and experience the outside world. Naruto explained as he held his hands out. I've tried to wait and hope you would let me go one day, but I can't wait around anymore. So let me get this straight Naruto, you're not only breaking my rules about leaving the temple, but you're also breaking the promise you made to me all those years ago. Hearing the tone of his mother's voice, Naruto had to steady his resolve and keep his composure. Yes, and I'm sorry that I can't keep that promise anymore. Selene's eyes hardened and Naruto could feel her magical power growing. You know I just won't let you walk away. Naruto took a deep breath and prepared his magic. Mom, you're gonna have to let me go one day, you can't keep me caged forever. I believe we have had this argument before Naruto. We have, but I'm much stronger than I used to be. Naruto replied, which caused Selene to smile. Don't think for a second you can beat me Naruto just because I've trained you. It's 100 years too soon for you to defeat me. Selene revealed as more and more of her magical power began to leak out. Naruto nodded with a soft smile. I never said I would try to beat you, just outsmart you. Acquire. Naruto yelled as he created a portal behind his back to an unknown area. I just wanted to make sure I got to say goodbye to you before I left. Oh no you don't. Selene yelled as she ran forward, which made Naruto quickly jump back into the portal. I love you mom and I promise to come see you soon. That's a promise I won't break. Naruto replied as he vanished into the portal before closing it shut with his magic. Leaving Selene alone with no idea where her son has traveled off to. You brat. Selene growled in a low voice as her anger was boiling at this point. You better not get yourself killed. 1 year later, Naruto aged 19. Sitting on a small rowboat bobbing up and down on the rough ocean waves, Naruto kept his vision focused on the destination before him. A year has gone by since he had escaped from living under his mother's thumb, and Naruto had experienced more of the world than he could ever imagine. The young half-dragon had also grown even more over the last year, as he was now a solid 6 feet tall and completely covered in lean muscle. Though his style of fashion didn't change from his time with his mother, as he wore an open light purple kimono that revealed his chiseled chest, but his lower body was left concealed with body wrapping. Though the most striking feature was the wooden practice sword that Naruto had resting on his shoulder. This wasn't just a simple piece of wood however, as it was a special magical item that Naruto had found on his travels. This particular item had the ability to have magical power transferred into it for 2 purposes. The first was to strengthen the durability of the item to make it much stronger than an average piece of wood. The second ability was to grow and shrink the sword to either increase its range or make it easier for traveling. Though the main reason Naruto used this weapon was to avoid using his moon dragon magic. Since he didn't want his mother to catch wind of him and track him down so she could drag him back to the temple he grew up in. Since he was having a lot of fun outside of the temple and didn't want to go back home anytime soon. Which was a big reason why Naruto was traveling on a small boat instead of just flying where he wanted to go, as it was easier to lay low this way. Besides Naruto was a dragon not a dragon slayer, so he didn't have any issue with motion sickness. Currently the blonde was making his way to Galuna Island, a place that held an ancient temple to the moon. Naruto being the son of the moon dragon god wanted to visit this temple, as he had a small inkling his mother had some hand in Galuna Island before fleeing to Galtina to escape Magnolia. So since his mother obviously wouldn't come looking for him here, he felt why not try and see if he can learn anything about his mother. So that's Galuna Island. Naruto mumbled as he gazed at the large island in the distance. Taking note of the purple moon cascading over the island. You don't have to be a moon dragon to know something isn't right with that moon. Standing upright on the boat, Naruto studied the strange moon and wondered if this phenomenon was normal for the island. However, upon further inspection Naruto could identify that a layer of magical residue was responsible for the moon's sudden color. Now I really want to explore this island. Naruto mumbled with excitement as his boat eventually reached the beach of the island. Yet as his boat arrived his nose began to pick up a cluster of smells. One of which heavily resembled a dragon and that made Naruto's eyes grow wide. It's not mom's scent, but if a dragon is here I have to be careful. Naruto began softly as he started to walk deep into the island in the direction of the scent of the dragon. Eventually finding himself standing in the brush line with a small village gathered together. Finding a group of demonic-looking people all surrounding 4 unfamiliar humans and a cat. What's going on here? Naruto mumbled as he saw a pink-haired teenager that the dragon smell was coming from talking to a girl with scarlet hair and knight armor. All the while a half-naked boy and a blonde girl holding a cat observed silently. Yet as Naruto watched from his concealed location the girl with scarlet hair quickly snapped her eyes to his location and summoned a sword that she threw right at Naruto. Forcing the half-dragon to raise his wooden sword to block the sudden attack from piercing his head. Hey what the hell you psychopath. Don't just go slinging swords at people. Naruto yelled as he revealed himself to everyone by spiking the sword onto the ground. Why are you spying on us? The girl yelled back, which made Naruto grind his teeth. I just landed on this island and I wanted to explore the moon temple. I wasn't expecting to find anyone here. Naruto replied in a stern voice, which made the girl understand the situation. Oh I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, please forgive me. The girl began before taking a bow. I'm Urza Scarlet of Fairy Tail by the way. Resting his sword on his shoulder and walking forward, Naruto gave a friendly wave. Nice to meet you Urza, I'm Naruto Namikaze. Urza nodded and held her hands out. And these are my comrades Natsu, Happy, Gray and Lucy. I see it's a pleasure to meet all of you, but do you know where the moon temple is? Naruto asked. Oh that old building? Natsu asked as he laughed nervously. Yeah I totally trashed that place. It's just a pile of rocks now. Falling flat on his face, Naruto couldn't believe he wasted all this time to find out some idiot had destroyed the temple. You gotta be kidding me. I came all this way for nothing. Sorry. Natsu chuckled. That's flame brain for you. Gray added with a small laugh as he stood over top of Naruto. Yeah sorry about Natsu. Lucy giggled. Aw man this is a total pain. Naruto groaned as he rubbed the side of his neck. Now I wasted my time and don't have anything else to do. Everyone listening to Naruto vent felt sorry for the blonde's bad timing, but Natsu suddenly got very interested the moment his nose began to catch wind of Naruto's scent. Hold up. Why do you smell like a dragon? Natsu yelled loudly as he pointed at Naruto. A dragon? Lucy and Happy gasped together. Like another dragon slayer? Gray chimed in. Urza locked eyes with Naruto, who seemed deep in thought, yet to her and everyone surprised the blonde gave a friendly laugh and smile. I've got no idea what you're talking about. What? The fairy tale wizards yelled, which made Naruto snicker. Yup, I'm just a wandering wizard looking for fun. Naruto lied as he didn't know these people and he didn't want anyone learning about his status as an actual dragon. But tell me, what's going on with this island? I can tell there is some magical residue over the island that's changing the moon's color. Huh? Gray, Natsu and Lucy all mumbled while Urza merely nodded. So you figured it out as well. You must be quite the wizard. Urza complimented before looking up. A group had been using the moon drip ceremony to resurrect a demon. Me and my guildmates have stopped those individuals and I was about to break the barrier over this island. Ah, I see, so you have things under control. In that case I'm gonna go find what's left of the temple and see if there is anything that isn't destroyed. Naruto mumbled in an annoyed voice as he glared at Natsu. Urza nodded and folded her arms. Well, if you would like to wait for me to clear up this magical residue, I can at least guide you to what's left of the temple. Giving Urza a wide grin, Naruto tightly grabbed his wooden sword. That would be great, Urza, but in that case why don't I help you with this magical residue? I would appreciate any help you could provide, but me and Natsu should be able to handle this. Urza explained, which caused Naruto to simply step back and observe, as he didn't want to show his magic anyway, and he was curious to see Urza and Natsu's magic. Alright, show me what you guys got then. Naruto cheered as he quickly found out that Urza used some time of magic to equip different kinds of weapons and armor, while Natsu was a fire dragon slayer, which explained the dragon's scent. The two then used a combined attack where Natsu used his fire to propel Urza's weapon high into the air to shatter the magical residue. From there the moon was on full display for everyone, and as Naruto himself gazed up to the massive orb in the sky, he was almost sure his mother would have been drawn to this island. However, what was truly interesting was that the island inhabitants were demons who had forgotten what they truly were. This made Naruto think back to the Onis back at the temple he grew up in, further cementing the idea that his mother had her dragonic hands in this island at one time or another. Yet as the island's inhabitants celebrated the return of their memories with the fairy tale wizards, Urza quickly took Naruto off to the side and down a path into the jungle. Then as the two made their way through the winding foliage, Urza suddenly decided to voice her curiosity about Naruto's intentions. So why exactly are you wanting to see this temple? Urza asked in a rather straightforward and blunt tone. Watching his words carefully, Naruto merely shrugged his shoulders. Since he figured he could be somewhat honest with Urza. I was looking into some of my family's past, and I think this island might have connections to my family. What do you hope to find about your family? Just what they were like when this island's temple was built. Naruto began, as his true goal was to learn more about his mother from a source that wasn't also his mother. I see. Urza trailed off as she looked at the sword Naruto was still holding. Tell me if you don't mind, but what type of magic do you use? You said you were a wizard and I noticed the wooden sword you have. So I was curious if your magic involved swordsmanship. Holding his weapon out for further inspection, Naruto merely grinned awkwardly. I know a few tricks, but this is just a magical item I use when I need to defend myself. I'm absolutely awful with a sword, but I can brute force most things. Urza merely nodded and summoned a sword of her own. I myself use requip magic that lets me use different weapons and armors. In fact, if you ever wanted I could show you a few things with a sword. Well, I have quite a lot of free time and nothing to do. Especially after I'm done here, since this is my only real destination in mind. So since I have no home to go back to, maybe I could let you show me a few things. At this Urza lifted her brow. So you're just wandering around with no home or real goal. Yup. I took off from my actual home a year ago and have just been exploring different places and meeting new people. Eventually I caught wind of this island and ended up here. Will you return back to your home? Urza asked, which made Naruto snicker. One day maybe I did make a promise after all, but mom kept me locked away for years. So I wanna have some adventures before she catches me. Catch you? Oh yeah, about that. Naruto mumbled as he rubbed the back of his head. I sorta ran away from home and my mom didn't really approve of me leaving. She's a super powerful woman and would totally kick my ass and drag me home if she found me. Urza giggled at the blonde's words. She sounds like a very protective mother. Overbearing is more like it. Naruto groaned in annoyance. But I'm the only family she has left, so I can see why she wants to keep me close. She's just gotta realize I gotta live my own life and spread my wings a little. Well, if you have nowhere to go, why not come with us to Fairy Tale? Urza asked as the wind blew throughout the forest, shaking the trees from side to side, allowing the smallest amount of moonlight to illuminate over Urza. Something that made Naruto's eyes grow wide as he was mesmerized by the scarlet-haired girl's beauty under the moon. Like join your guild? Urza simply nodded with a soft smile. Yes. I don't know. Naruto began with a skeptical voice. I've spent a majority of my life locked in one place. I kinda want some freedom. As someone who knows what it means to be locked away without any freedom, trust me. A guild is different. It's a home you can come and go to at any time. Naruto was intrigued by what Urza meant by not having freedom and being locked away. However, right now he was more focused on the decision to join a guild. So I wouldn't be chained down by anything or anyone? Naruto asked, which made Urza smile. You wouldn't have any chains holding you from going where you wanted or doing what you wished. However, you will make lifelong bonds that you will always cherish. Urza replied softly as she saw Naruto's eyes ignite with excitement, showing that she had finally won the blonde over. You know what? I think I will tag along and join your guild. It could be fun. Naruto replied with a cheerful smile, which made Urza hold her hand out. Then let me be the first person to welcome you to the Fairy Tail Guild. Accepting Urza's hand, Naruto felt a small spark the moment their hands touched. Yet as they held the handshake, Naruto gave a rather toothy grin. Well, why don't we check out this temple so we can go back to everyone else? That sounds like a good plan. Urza replied as she and Naruto eventually made their way to what was left of the temple. A sight that made Naruto whistle and rub his head. Man, Natsu really did a number on this place. Naruto observed as the temple was indeed nothing except a pile of rocks. That's Natsu for you, but look over there. It seems that piece of rock has some form of writing on it. Walking closer and inspecting a large fallen stone slab, Naruto did notice an inscription that was in an old language. Yet there was one word in particular that stuck out to him among everything. Selene. Naruto mumbled with the faintest of smiles, getting the final confirmation his mother was involved with this island. Selene? Urza repeated as she stood by Naruto's side. What does that mean? I can't make any of this out. Selene was sort of a god that the people of this island worshipped. She apparently had strong ties to the moon and this island. Naruto explained in a half-truth as he wasn't going to tell the complete truth, which was that his several hundred-year-old dragon mother used to live here. Does it say anything about your family? Urza asked, which made Naruto laugh and shake his head. No, and I'm afraid with how damaged this temple is I won't find anything, but that's okay. Naruto replied with a positive attitude as he quickly turned back to where they came from. But let's head back to the village, I've seen all I need to see here. Urza nodded. I'm sure the others will be excited to hear you're joining the guild. Naruto smiled and started to walk with Urza, as after spending 18 years being locked away and 1 year traveling without a purpose. The young dragon was finally making his way down the path that led to his future. Chapter end. So this is a little project I wanted to start. If you're unfamiliar with Selene, she is an antagonist in the Fairy Tail 100-year quest arc. I recommend reading it if you haven't, and it will give you a good idea of Selene's character and powers, along with how that will affect Naruto. However, like always, I'll answer a few questions that you may have. Naruto verse and chakra. Naruto has chakra, but can't use it yet. I may do an arc where Naruto visits his dad's dimension, but don't expect many Naruto characters crossing over. It's mainly gonna be Fairy Tail for now. Pairing. Watcha see is watcha get. Urza is overused, but she's a fun character. If you don't like her, I have another story where she isn't the main interest. Naruto's magic. He is half dragon and has moon dragon magic. His magic tool and a few small things to help hide his dragon magic for a time. Since he doesn't want to use his dragon magic since that would make it easier for Selene to find him. Chapter 2. Walking into a war. Outskirts of Magnolia. So you wanna fight? Natsu asked in a rather excited voice, which did earn a long sigh from Naruto. The half-dragon had been traveling to the hometown of the Fairy Tail Guild with his newfound companions. An experience that had allowed Naruto to better acquaint himself with each of the wizards. Quickly learning Natsu had a one-track mind and was obsessed with fighting strong opponents and would not stop asking him for a fight. Yet it was better than Natsu constantly asking why Naruto smelled like a dragon. A subject he eventually dropped for the meantime. And you just let it go, Natsu. We are almost back to the guild. Lucy tried to reason, which made Naruto look at his fellow blonde. In his short time with the young celestial spirit wizard, Naruto had learned she was quite level-headed and a kind person. Who seemed to try and be the voice of reason on Natsu's shoulder. I wouldn't waste your breath, Lucy. That idiot is too thick-headed to listen. Gray chimed in, which made Naruto look at the ice wizard. Coming to learn, Gray was a calm and laid-back person who loved to butt heads with Natsu, while also having a strange habit to strip completely naked. What did you call me, jerk? Natsu roared as he glared at Gray. Gray quickly puffed out his chest and pressed his torso into Natsu. You heard me, Dumbus. Boys. Urza began in a low and commanding voice, which quickly forced both teens to stop their potential fight from sheer fear of the scarlet-haired knight. Something that made Naruto snicker and look at the girl who had invited him along this little journey in the first place. He had learned she was strong and polite, but there was something more to her. Naruto himself couldn't place it into words, but it was almost like his draconic instincts were telling him to stay close to Urza. Since there was this layer to Urza that was hidden and he wanted to scratch through to the bottom of it. So trusting his instincts he did just that. So Naruto. The tiny voice of Happy began as the small cat flew on top of his head. Are you excited to see the guild? Having all eyes on him, Naruto got a little nervous and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Yeah, for sure. I've heard a lot about guilds, but I've never really been inside one, let alone going as far as trying to become a member. So I'm looking forward to this. Fairy Tail is awesome. Natsu declared as he started to shadowbox around the blonde. There are all these totally strong people you get to fight. I'm not really trying to fight anyone. Naruto replied with a laugh, as he never really cared for fighting like his new pink-haired friend did. Don't let Natsu twist your expectations of the guild. Urza spoke up as she glared at the fire user. The guild is more of a tight-knit family where you can have a laugh and find some jobs to make money. Yeah, what Urza said. I haven't been a member for long myself, but I love the guild. Lucy chimed in, which made Naruto nod. Well, I'm glad I have a fellow newbie with me to help fit in. Naruto replied as the group quickly found themselves walking through the main entrance into Magnolia. An experience that caused Naruto's eyes to light up with wonder as he took in all the sights around him. Urza herself smiled as she saw Naruto's amazement of the town she and many fairy tale wizards called home. I take it you're impressed with the town. Yeah, it's huge. I've been in a few towns this last year, but I always love seeing new unfamiliar sights. Naruto replied with a sense of wonder, showing the effect being locked away by his mother for so many years had on him. I mean, just look at the size of that building. Is that the guild? Urza giggled and shook her head. No, that's Magnolia's cathedral, the guild is on the other end of the town. Hitting his fist against the palm of his hand, Naruto nodded and made an O sound. You know, if you're impressed with the buildings you should see Magnolia during a festival. Gray spoke up, which made Naruto look over his shoulder. This town has festivals. I've always wanted to go see a festival. Naruto admitted. Yeah, Magnolia has lots of festivals. We are even getting close to the yearly Fantasia parade. Happy cheered from his spot on Naruto's head. Looking up and trying to see the small cat on his head, Naruto lifted his brow in interest. What's that? It's something our guild puts on every year during the Harvest Festival. Gray explained. In fact, this won't only be your first Fantasia parade, but Lucy's as well. Urza added in with a wide smile. I'll make sure to tell the master to include you both front and center this year. Lucy quickly held her hands up nervously. Oh no, you don't have to do that for me. Natsu laughed and slung his arm around the bashful blonde. Don't be silly, Lucy, you're a fairy tale wizard now. You absolutely gotta do the parade, but if you want you can join in on me and Happy's float. We always go all out. Gray scoffed. If going all out means your float exploding in fire like it did last year, then sure. Hey. Our float was a crowd favorite last year. Natsu yelled out, which caused Happy to sigh. Natsu, for the last time those people were screaming in fear, not cheering for us. Which is why the master banned you from having a large float again in the parade. Urza added in, which made Naruto laugh. So in other words, me and Lucy should steer clear of Natsu. The moon dragon began as everyone else except for Natsu just nodded. That would be best, but if you're nervous about joining the parade, I would be more than happy to help either of you. Urza revealed, which made both Naruto and Lucy smile. Thanks, Urza. Lucy replied. Yeah, I might just take you up on that offer. Naruto added in, as his heightened hearing began to pick up on small whispers from all around. Hearing phrases like I wonder if they know or I heard it was Phantom Lord and many more. Yet as the whispers grew louder and fingers began to be pointed at the group. Even those with regular hearing could tell something wasn't right. We should hurry to the guild. Urza suddenly spoke up as she started to jog at a modest pace. I'm right behind you. Gray called out as he and Natsu both took off after her. What's going on? Lucy mumbled, while Naruto had a rather hardened look on his face. Nothing good. The half-dragon replied before running after Urza, which caused Lucy to follow. The group, moving at a rather fast pace, eventually made their way to where the guild hall was visible in the distance. Yet something wasn't right with the building, and that only caused the group to run even faster. Eventually making their way before the historic building to find it impaled with large metallic pillars in all directions. A horrific sight for everyone including Naruto, who was smart enough to tell something wasn't right. In fact, Naruto swore he could smell the faintest scent of another user of Dragon Slayer magic like Natsu. What happened to our guild? Natsu yelled with pure rage. It was Phantom. A soft voice from behind the group began, which made everyone look back to find Fairy Tail's famous pinup girl Murahin. Was anyone injured? Urza quickly asked, which made Marahin shake her head. No, the attack happened last night while nobody was around. Thank goodness. Lucy gasped with a sigh of relief. And where is the master? Are we fighting back? Natsu asked quickly, which made Marahin frown. The master is in the guild's basement with everyone else, but well, you should just talk to him yourself. Marahin explained as she suddenly took notice of Naruto. Also, who is your friend? He's a new friend who wishes to join the guild. Urza explained. Naruto gave Marahin a small wave. Hi, I'm Naruto Namikaze. Nodding her head, Marahin gave the blonde the best smile she could muster. Well, welcome to the guild, I'm Marahin. It's nice to meet you, Marahin. I'm sorry we are meeting in some rather sour circumstances. Naruto replied with sincerity. Well, we should all head inside and see the master. Urza cut in, which caused Natsu to get a pep in his step. And then we can go get payback with those phantom jerks. The fire user declared before running into the guild. Meanwhile, Naruto and everyone else just slowly followed Natsu into the damaged guild hall, allowing Naruto to get a quick glimpse of the guild hall before making his way into the basement, where he found a majority of the fairy tale wizards gathered together sulking and drinking their depression away. Natsu was already off to the side yelling at a rather short and elderly man, which from the conversation Naruto could hear was enough for Naruto to learn a few things. One, the short man was their master, and secondly, he had no intention of striking back at their attackers. However, as Naruto eavesdropped on Natsu with his superior hearing, Urza suddenly placed a soft touch onto Naruto's arm, prompting him to look at the scarlet-haired warrior. Come, let's introduce you to the master. Urza began in a tone that made Naruto take notice that something wasn't right. Almost as if the girl beside him was trying to fake confidence despite having an entire mountain of worries suddenly dangling around her. Worries of her friends and family having targets on their backs that could quickly lead to a war. So doing the only thing he could do, Naruto gave Urza the best smile he could make and nodded his head. Yeah, let's go say something before Natsu drives him crazy. Feeling a sense of ease sweeping over her from the blonde's grin and voice, Urza gave a tiny smile before leading Naruto to the master. An action that caused the aged wizard to take notice of Naruto and Urza. Right before using his enlarged hand to crush Natsu into the floorboards of the basement, effectively knocking the boy unconscious and ending his complaining about Phantom Lord. Urza, it's good to see you. Makarov began with a large red tint on his face as he held up the beer in his hand, showing that the short man was in fact quite drunk. Who's your friend? A boyfriend perhaps? The vein popping on Urza's head at the fact that her master was drunk and not giving a good first impression. The scarlet-haired wizard quickly held a hand to Naruto. This is my new friend Naruto Namikaze. He wishes to join our guild. Hearing this, Makarov lifted his brow and studied Naruto carefully, showing that despite the man's drunken state, he still had the capacity to analyze the blonde with expert precision. Is that true? The small wizard began as he directed his attention completely onto Naruto. You want to join my guild? Folding his arms and taking a moment to think over his words, Naruto could tell this man was sizing him up. His tone was serious, and his gaze was trying to find the slightest sign of danger. Yet Naruto wasn't intimidated in the slightest as this man didn't hold a candle to his mother's level of intimidation. So giving Makarov a friendly smile, Naruto nodded. That's right, Urza convinced me that joining the guild could be a lot of fun. Naruto answered honestly. And what type of magic do you use? Makarov asked, which caused Naruto to hold out his wooden sword. I use magical items. Naruto explained, an answer that caused Makarov to nod. Is that so? Makarov asked in a tone that didn't really buy into the answer he was given, since he could feel Naruto had way too much magical power for a typical magical item user. I know it's not the most flashy or powerful magic, but Urza has even promised to help me get better with my swordsmanship. Naruto replied as he rested his sword onto his shoulder. So I'm really excited to work with her as much as I can. Closing his eyes, Makarov had a rather large list of questions about the blonde's true power and intentions. However, the aged wizard was always one to accept someone who needed a home or guidance. So with that in mind, he wasn't going to turn his back onto Naruto and deny him from the guild, but he was going to watch the blonde more closely than anyone else. Well, in that case, welcome to the guild, Naruto. Makarov began as a small magical item that creates guild stamps shimmered to life in his hand. So where would you like your guild mark and what color will it be? Thinking for a second, Naruto eventually opened his kimono to reveal his chest to the man. Can you make the mark black, but give it a crescent yellow design like the moon in the center? Lifting his brow at the rather odd request, Makarov looked at his newest wizard. I could, but for what reason? Rubbing his head nervously, Naruto thought quickly on his feet and decided to use a little bit of honesty with the older man to avoid any further questions. Well, me and my mom always had a strong connection to the moon. So it's just a small way to connect back to my mom. Finding not a single hint of deceit in Naruto's words and actions, Makarov merely nodded and pressed the device against Naruto's right pectoral muscle. leaving the exact guild mark he had requested for anyone to see. "There you go my boy, you're an official fairy tale wizard now." Urza smiled and watched Naruto look down at his new mark. "It looks good on you." Quickly snapping his eyes to Urza, Naruto gave his new friend a toothy grin. "Thanks. Well, don't be shy Naruto, walk around and mingle with your new guildmates. I'm sure Urza can help you get to know everyone." Quickly taking a bow, Urza grabbed onto Naruto's arm with a smile. "Of course, I'll make sure everyone gets to know our newest member right away." Feeling himself being pulled away from the master, Naruto was quickly led to a table where Lucy was talking with a few unfamiliar wizards. All of whom had their attention placed onto Naruto immediately. "So this is the new guy Lucy was talking about, huh?" A male around Natsu's age spoke up with a grin. "Name's Jet by the way. I'm Droy." The other boy quickly introduced. "And I'm Levi." A small girl with blue hair added in before all three struck a quick pose. "And together we are Team Shadow Gear." Laughing at the three teens, Naruto held his hand up with a friendly smile. Hey. I'm Naruto Namikaze, it's a pleasure to meet you all." Watching Naruto quickly make friends with the members of Team Shadow Gear. Urza was filled with joy at how her newest friend was fitting into their guild. Later that night, seated on a small windowsill and looking out and up into the night sky, Naruto watched the moon and thought over everything that had happened. Reflecting over his new status as a fairy tale wizard and the fact that his new guild had been attacked by another major guild. Something that could lead to a massive conflict where Naruto might be forced to fight. Asking himself if he was forced into a corner would he use his true strength to protect his new guild. An action that could give his location away to his mother, forcing Naruto into a situation where he may lose his freedom once more. Yet if Naruto was being honest with himself, he wouldn't give up his freedom for people he hardly knew. Nevertheless he for some reason found the answer to his question growing harder and harder to find. As he was slowly starting to develop a bond with his new friends. Urza especially as his instincts alone drew the blonde to the retreat in a way he couldn't explain. "What the hell are you guys doing in my apartment?" The voice of Lucy suddenly shrieked, which snapped Naruto out of his daze and made him look at the blonde who had entered the room. "Yo Lucy." Natsu spoke up as he waved at the blonde from her table, which the boy was using to play cards with Happy and Gray. "Took you long enough." Happy chimed in. "Nice place you got Lucy." Gray added in, as he was suddenly stripped into his underwear. "Why are you all here?" Lucy yelled again, which caused Urza to step forward with a calm expression. "It's possible that members of Phantom Lord are still within the town. So many members are sticking with their teams to stay safe." Urza explained in a matter-of-fact tone as she smiled. "So we all decided since we have worked as a team in the past to stay together." Naruto tossed his hands up and laughed. "And I'm homeless so thanks for giving me a roof for the night." Lucy quickly sighed in frustration and dropped her shoulders in defeat. Since she knew that accepting the situation was better than arguing about something that wouldn't change. So instead she just walked over to where Natsu was and took a seat. "Well I'd say make yourselves at home, but you already have." His attention away from the outside window, Naruto crossed his arms and looked at his new guildmates. "So is this kinda thing normal? Why did Phantom Lord attack our guild in the first place?" Urza took a seat on Lucy's bed and closed her eyes. "Who knows, our guilds have had a few small skirmishes in the past, but never a direct attack like this." Natsu huffed. "If Gramps wasn't so scared we could go wipe the floor with those bastards." "Gramps isn't scared." Gray fired back in a calm voice while reclining back. "He's one of the 10 wizard saints after all." "The what?" Naruto and Lucy both spoke in unison. "It's a title bestowed upon the 10 greatest wizards in the continent by the chairman of the Magical Council." Urza explained, which caused Lucy's eyes to go wide. "Oh wow. So the master must be pretty strong to have that title." Naruto pointed out, which caused Urza to nod. "But Phantom Lord's Master Oze is also a wizard saint." Happy added in. "Who cares?" Natsu yelled as he slammed his hand onto the table. "All Phantom has is numbers. Gramps is just too scared to do anything." "That's not true." Gray began as he was starting to get annoyed. "The master is just aware of the consequences a conflict between 2 guilds that are run by wizard saints would have. He's trying to keep the peace, not start a war." Urza nodded in agreement. "Besides, we stand on equal footing with Phantom Lord in terms of power. Their 4 S-class wizards, the Elemental 4 and Iron Dragon Slayer, are more than a match for us." "Wait, Phantom has a Dragon Slayer like Natsu?" Lucy gasped in shock, while Naruto merely absorbed the information. Since another Dragon Slayer explained the smell Naruto picked up on back at the guild. "Yes, but let's not talk anymore about these burdensome topics. Instead let's merely relax and forget about Phantom Lord for the night." Urza began as she quickly used her magic to change into her pajamas. "That sounds good to me." Naruto replied as he stood up and began to stretch. Urza looked at the blonde and more importantly the sword in his hand. Then the scarlet-haired knight smiled before walking to an open spot in the apartment. "Well if you're interested I can show you a few sword stances and strikes while we have some free time." Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto joined Urza's side. Sure, show me what you know. Lucy turned pale. Please don't destroy my apartment. Don't worry Lucy, we won't spar or anything. Just go over some basics. Urza reassured as she summoned a sword in hand and began to demonstrate a basic sword stance. Now Naruto, follow along with me. Mimicking the girl's movements, Naruto listened carefully to every tip and trick of expertise that Urza had to offer. Something that caused the scarlet-haired knight to smile as she enjoyed this moment she was sharing with the blonde, as she had never shared her swordsmanship with anyone else before. You're a natural. Urza complimented with a small smile as she watched her newest guildmate take to her teaching. We just might have to ourselves a little spar. That could be fun, but I don't think our current location is the best training field. The light-hearted laugh escaping her lips, Urza merely nodded. Yes, I believe you're correct, but what I'm showing you are the basics of a sword style. With training and practice you can build upon these stances and strikes to make a style all your own. A wide toothy grin appeared on Naruto's face at what he was told. Since the young dragon was already getting a mountain's worth of ideas to make his own sword style. One that he just might be able to sneakily add some of his moon dragon magic into for even stronger results. Well in that case I owe you big time. Naruto admitted as he gave Urza an eye smile. Not only have you given me a guild to join, but you're helping me get stronger. I promise I'll make it up to you one day. Urza merely nodded with a smile of her own. I'll hold you to that. The following day, standing by Urza with an expression of disbelief, Naruto looked up at the beaten bodies of Team Shadow Gear. All of whom were pinned onto a large tree in the middle of town. Whoever did this will pay. Urza mumbled in a deathly serious voice, which did make Naruto glance at his new friend. Finding her anger oddly similar to that of his mother's. Yet Naruto didn't even have a moment to think of a response, as a powerful magical signature grabbed his attention. Making Naruto look to his side to find his new guild master glaring upwards with pure anger. I can stomach the destruction of my guild, but to harm my children. Makarov growled loudly as he snapped his staff and spiked his power even further. Is calling for war. Watching silently as the master along with a few other members of the guild went to help Levi, Jet and Roy. Naruto turned his attention to Urza, who seemed to have a razor-sharp focus. So we are attacking Phantom Lord back? Most likely. Urza replied as her eyes suddenly grew a small hint of concern. But you aren't expected to join any attack. Naruto lifted his brow at Urza's words. I'm not afraid of a little fight. I'm stronger than you think. I know, but with Levi, Jet and Roy's condition. Someone has to stay behind to take care of them, which would most likely be Marahin and Lucy. However, they would be in danger of another attack. So I worry about their safety. You don't have to stay, but it would be a burden off my shoulders to know they would be safe. I see. Naruto mumbled softly as he rubbed the back of his head. In that case don't worry about them. I'll keep everyone back here safe. Placing a soft hand on Naruto's arm, Urza nodded with the best smile she could muster. Thank you. Giving Urza a half smile that filled her with a warm feeling deep inside, Naruto merely laughed softly. Don't mention it, just give them hell for me. Magnolia Magical Clinic with his back against the wall of the room that Levi, Jet and Roy were placed in for their injuries. Naruto watched with a rather neutral expression as Lucy tended to the wounds of the fellow guildmates. Wondering to himself if he made the right decision to stay behind with Lucy and watch over their comrades. Don't worry. Lucy spoke up, which grabbed Naruto's attention. Everyone will be okay, our guild is strong. We just need to trust in our friends to kick Phantom's ass. Sighing to himself and removing himself from the wall, Naruto stood beside Lucy and looked down at the blonde. I guess you're right, but I'm starting to regret staying behind. Don't be, no one expects you to put yourself on the line for people you just met. Besides, helping me with taking care of these three is more than enough help. All the same I hope Urza and everyone else is okay. Lucy got a soft smile and looked away from Levi and up at Naruto. You seem to have become rather fond of Urza. Don't tell me our newest member has a crush on the queen. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his fellow blonde, as whenever she was near Natsu he could hear her heartbeat grow faster. Big talk from a person almost as new as me. Who happens to fancy a rather loud-mouthed dragon slayer. Turning beet red and fumbling over her words, Lucy didn't know how to respond to Naruto. Something that made the dragon smirk with a toothy grin before giving her a pat on the shoulder. I didn't embarrass you, did I? Naruto asked with a light-hearted laugh. Don't worry, I won't tell a soul. Wait, don't dodge my question like that. You do have a crush on Urza. Lucy quickly accused as she pointed her finger directly at Naruto. I wouldn't call it a crush. Naruto replied coolly as he looked off to the side and shrugged his shoulders. You probably wouldn't understand it, but her scent is calming to my senses. Her voice is soothing to hear, and she has this aura about her that keeps me intrigued. Lucy looked directly at her fellow blonde with a deadpan expression. So you have a crush. His eyes twitching in annoyance, the half-dragon glared at his new friend. It's not that simple, okay? Giggling and covering her smirk with her hand, Lucy had to admit Naruto was someone who could make a person smile through the bleakest of times. Okay, I'll drop the subject for now, but I'll be rooting for you and Urza. And with how both you and Natsu pester me about something, I'll be rooting for you too. Naruto shot back, making Lucy turn red once more. Okay fine, let's call it truce. Lucy quickly gasped out, which made Naruto smirk. Alright, truce. Naruto replied softly as he was enjoying himself with his little back and forth with Lucy. Wondering if this was what it was like to have a sibling to argue and bond with. Good. Lucy began as she stood to her feet and started to stretch. I'm going to head out and pick up a few things that will help these three. Naruto nodded and grabbed his wooden sword. I'll come with you then. Holding her hands up and smiling, Lucy shook her head. You don't have to, I'll be fine. Resting his weapon on his shoulder, Naruto simply started to walk towards the exit. And leave you alone for another attack. Not a chance. Quickly joining Naruto's side, Lucy lifted her brow. But who will keep Levi and the others safe? Tapping his ears with a rather wide grin, Naruto gave Lucy a confident look. Let's just say I have the ability to hear and smell better than most. If anyone unfamiliar gets near them, I'll know. Being oblivious to the implications of Naruto's heightened senses, Lucy merely gave the blonde a small bow. Well, in that case, I appreciate you tagging along to keep me safe. Just know I'll watch your back as well. Walking out into the streets of Magnolia, Naruto nodded. Sounds good to me, Lucy, just lead the way. Well, there is a cheap stall this way that sells some local ingredients. I was thinking about preparing a nice meal to help Levi and everyone recover faster. Lucy explained as she started to walk with Naruto following close behind. That's rather thoughtful of you. Naruto praised with a beaming smile, which caused Lucy to wave the blonde off. It's the least I can do, Levi has been a really great friend ever since I joined the guild. So I want to do everything I can for her, Jet and Droy. Feeling a drop of rain against his skin, Naruto immediately felt on edge. Since out of nowhere a downpour of rain began to cascade down onto him and Lucy. Where did this rain come from? Lucy grumbled as she quickly used her hands to try and shield the top of her head from the downpour. Naruto, smelling unfamiliar magic in the air, knew this wasn't a natural rain, but was instead the byproduct of someone's magic. So grabbing his sword and positioning his body to stand in front of Lucy, Naruto kept a calm and calculated demeanor. Lucy, I want you to stay close to me, okay? Surprised by the blonde's sudden request, Lucy stayed close by without any backlash. What's going on? His nose detecting a scent identical to the magic in the air, Naruto snapped his eyes in the direction of a single woman with blue hair. Who was holding an umbrella and walking directly towards Naruto and Lucy. I'm about to find out. Naruto replied in a hushed whisper as he pointed his wooden sword at the unfamiliar woman. Who are you and why are you making this rain? Juvia is a rain woman. The now named Juvia introduced herself while Naruto began to catch a second scent close by. And who are you? Maybe I'll tell you when your friend comes out of hiding. Naruto growled back, which caught Lucy off guard. Making the girl wonder if they were being attacked like Levi and the others were. Oh, how interesting. A fourth voice spoke up as a rather strange-looking man started to materialize out of the sidewalk by Juvia's side. You're quite observant to have noticed me so quickly. Soul. Juvia began as she looked at the man. Is this girl our target? The now named Soul got a rather sleazy gleam in his eyes as he looked at Lucy and adjusted his monocle. Blonde, Celestial Gate Keys and a member of Fairy Tail. I do believe this is Lucy Heartfilia. Lucy's eyes going wide in horror at the mention of her full name, didn't know how to respond. Naruto on the other hand could hear Lucy's heart beating faster and faster. Something that caused the blonde to grip his sword tightly. Don't worry, Lucy. You're safe as long as you're with me. Naruto declared in a confident tone while his eyes suddenly got a dangerous glow to them. And I'll only ask you to this once. Why are you targeting my friend? And just who are you? Soul asked as he noticed Naruto's guild mark under his kimono. I've never heard of a fairy tale wizard matching your description. I'm a little new. Naruto began in a low and serious voice as he watched both enemy wizards carefully. But I'll only ask this once more. Why are you after Lucy? It's simple. Juvia spoke up in a dry voice. Master Oze gave the orders to capture Lucy Heartfilia, so we are doing just that. And as members of the Elemental Four, we always carry out our master's wishes. Soul added in, trying to use his title to intimidate both blondes. Especially with how lucrative it would be to capture the heir of the Heartfilia family for the reward her father is offering. Naruto, these are the guys Urza warned us about. They are bad news. Lucy gasped in a low voice as she was trembling with fear. We need to escape. I'm not impressed. Naruto spoke up in a rather bored voice, which made Lucy's eyes go wide. But if you're here to try and hurt my friend, well then I'll stop you right here and now. A large grin gracing his lips, Soul looked directly at Naruto. I would love to see you try. In an instant Naruto appeared before Soul like a flash of light. Then using all his might, Naruto slammed his wooden sword down onto Soul, causing a bone-chilling cracking sound to ring throughout the area before Naruto slammed Soul straight into the ground below, making the ground crack and break as Soul was pressed deep into the stone walkway. There. Naruto began in a hollow voice as he backed away and looked at the unconscious and twitching Soul, his normally vibrant blue eyes having a rather dangerous void expression behind them. I tried. Amazing. Lucy gasped in awe, quickly snapping his sword up and pointing it directly at Juvia to where the tip was pointed at her neck. Naruto slowly looked at the water wizard with a deathly serious gaze. Take this bastard back to your master and let him know this is what I'll do to every single member of your guild if you don't back down. Dropping her umbrella in fear as she hallucinated a massive dragon roaring behind Naruto's back, Juvia quickly grabbed Soul and retreated in pure terror. Naruto, watching the woman run away, merely turned and looked at Lucy with a calm expression as the rain began to disappear. You okay? Naruto asked softly, while his voice still held a slight hint of rage behind it. Nodding her head quickly, Lucy was almost at a loss for words. Naruto, that was incredible. You beat an S-class wizard in the blink of an eye. It's not that impressive. He was weak and underestimated my strength. Naruto replied as he folded his arms and lifted his brow. Now want to explain why you would be targeted. They called you the heir to the Hertfilia family. Slightly cringing at Naruto's question, Lucy knew there was no point in keeping her family a secret anymore. I'm from a rather wealthy family in Fiori, but 1 year ago I ran away from my father and set out to join a guild. He's a bastard that never wanted anything to do with me, but now he's paying for my capture. The guild, Levi, Jet and Roy. All of this is my fault. Making a fist and lightly bonking Lucy on the crown of her forehead, Naruto gave his fellow runaway a smile. This isn't your fault, Lucy, it's your old man and Phantom Lord's fault. Hell, it's been a year since I ran away from my home and mother. So trust me, I understand where you're coming from. Tears building up in the corner of her eyes, Lucy frowned. But your mom isn't causing all these problems for our guild. Trust me, Lucy, if my mother knew where I was she would cause havoc. Naruto replied before giving Lucy the best smile he could muster. So I promise you that I'll personally make sure Phantom, or anyone for that matter, will force you back home. I'll keep you safe. Tears running down her cheeks, Lucy quickly bowed her head. Thank you. Laughing at the younger blonde, Naruto ruffled her hair before giving her a final pat on the head and walking off. Come on, let's head back to the guild in Mira. We can tell her what we learned and figure a way out of this mess. Looking up to Naruto and running along his side, Lucy merely nodded with a wide smile. She never had any siblings to look after her, but as she stayed by the older teen, Lucy couldn't help but think if this was what it was like to have a protective older brother. Later at Fairy Tail, standing naked in a scorching hot shower, Naruto merely had his arms pressed against the wall as he was deep in thought. He had kept Lucy safe and escorted her to Mirahan to explain the situation to the former S-class wizard. However, not much longer after Naruto and Lucy explained what they learned from Soul and Juvia, the rest of the guild had returned. Yet they were not victorious, but instead beaten and battered, with the master being in the worst shape. Considering in the attack he had his magic completely drained, leaving him in a critical state. An outcome that again made Naruto question himself, as if he would have gone with everyone he could have made a difference. I could end this little war right now if I wanted. Naruto thought in frustration as he began to think of everyone who had been injured so far. Mom wouldn't find me if I used my magic right away, but eventually word would spread of my abilities and then she would definitely be onto me. Naruto tightened his fists. Maybe after all this time she would forgive me for leaving and give me more freedom. Naruto mused in thought, but quickly frowned. No, that's not like Mom at all. However, a realization suddenly struck in Naruto's mind. Realizing he was trying to convince himself to use his magic to help his friends. Realizing he was starting to care for these people more than his own freedom. Realizing he was almost ready to risk it all to help people he hardly knew. Am I really ready to give myself up to save everyone? As Naruto had his inner turmoil, he wasn't paying attention to his surroundings one bit. So he didn't hear the footsteps approaching the shower's door until it slid open, revealing Urza, who was wearing nothing besides a towel around her body and sporting a blush as crimson as her hair. What are you doing here? Urza yelped in shock as she used both hands to hide her eyes. An unfortunate decision for the young wizard, as the towel around her body quickly fell onto the ground, unveiling her body in all its nude glory to Naruto. Didn't you hear the water running? I'm taking a shower, you pervert. Naruto yelled back as his face was equally as red as Urza's. However, he wasn't trying to hide his eyesight from the beautiful girl before him. I'm not a pervert. This is the girl's shower. Urza fired back as she used her hands and arms to cover her exposed body. How was I supposed to know? I've hardly been here a day. Naruto shouted back, which caused Urza to recoil back and her eyes to twitch. Okay, you may have a point. The scarlet-haired woman admitted as she lowered herself to grab her towel. Then by concealing herself she tried to avoid looking at Naruto. And are you not going to cover yourself? Naruto shrugged his shoulders. My childhood home had a rather large hot spring, so I was used to people seeing me naked. So you're a pervert like Gray. Okay, for one, you're the pervert. Why are you even still here? And second, taking baths in my own home while my mother's followers were around to serve us was completely different than being a nudist like Gray. Absorbing new information about Naruto, Urza turned her back to the blonde. I'm just merely waiting till I can have my turn. However, you had people serving you. Were you rich like Lucy? Taking a deep sigh and realizing Urza wasn't going anywhere, Naruto turned the water off and went to grab a towel to dry himself off. My family wasn't exactly wealthy, just powerful. What do you mean? It's exactly what it sounds like. My mother is an incredibly powerful person, and that power causes people to flock to her. Naruto explained in a rather simple tone. And just how powerful is your mother exactly? Urza asked as she looked at Naruto from over her shoulder. Finding herself incredibly curious about the blonde's past. I don't know how to place it into words for you to understand, but if our guild and Phantom Lord joined forces to fight my mother, you would all die. Naruto explained in a deathly serious tone that made Urza jerk her body around to look at the blonde. You're exaggerating, right? Not in the slightest. Naruto replied as he started to dress back into his kimono. But how? Urza asked as she found what the blonde was telling her impossible to believe. Quickly realizing he was saying too much about his mother, Naruto closed his eyes and sighed. Don't worry about her. She's not really important right now, we should keep our attention on our current situation with Phantom Lord. I'm certain we haven't seen the last of them, and with the master injured, who is calling the shots? Urza frowned at this question. We have several active S-class wizards, but I'm the only current S-class present to help. Urza explained as she tightened her fists in frustration. But I'm not fit to guide anyone, I wasn't there to help the master, and I don't know what to do without him. However, everyone is counting on me to take charge and lead the guild. Naruto was surprised as he could hear the cracks in the powerful and confident girl's voice. Even the way she was carrying herself was so defeated and lost, which didn't set right with the young dragon. Well, I might be new. Naruto began as he reached out and rested his hand on Urza's shoulder. But I'll do anything I can to help support you. Her nerves slowly dying down, Urza let the smallest smile escape her lips. Thank you. So tell me what I can do to help. Well, a sudden trembling shaking the guild hall, Urza stopped mid-sentence and looked at Naruto with concern. What was that? Naruto mumbled before another tremble shook the building, and the sound of what sounded like massive footsteps could be heard. More trembling shaking the area, Urza quickly used her magic to change into her regular clothing. I'm not sure, but we need to investigate. Nodding his head and completely dressed, Naruto and Urza quickly ran out onto the front of the guild hall. Finding the rest of their guild all gathered as well, while a large looming castle on legs slowly stomped its way through the water in the distance. A sight that caught Naruto completely off guard, as he had never seen or heard of any type of walking fortress before. Urza on the other hand merely gritted her teeth nervously. I was afraid of this. The scarlet-haired knight began in a low voice, which made Naruto glance down at her. Phantom has brought their full force to us. Taking in this information, Naruto watched as the walking fortress came to a sudden stop a medium distance away from the guild. Leaving Naruto and the rest of the fairy tale guild on edge. I will give you this one warning. A voice projected through the fortress. Urza growled in a low voice. Hand over Lucy Hertfilia or die. Hearing this threat, Naruto looked over to Lucy. Finding his new friend was shaking with her head down. Obviously horrified that she was the root cause of this guild war. Thinking he was about to say something to stand up for his new friend. Knowing he made a promise to keep her safe and he was going to see it through. Yet before Naruto could say or do anything a sudden voice yelled out. Not a chance in hell. Natsu roared in anger as he shook his flaming fist at the fortress. Lucy is one of us. Mikao yelled out. We'd never give her over to you. Kana added in loudly. Elfman flexed his muscles and growled. A real man never turns on his friends. Hearing similar declarations to keep Lucy within the guild and not give her up, Naruto was completely surprised. He knew Lucy was almost as new as he was. Regardless, every single member of the guild was dead set on protecting her, despite the threat Phantom Lord brought to their doorstep. It was surreal to see a group of individuals like this and left Naruto amazed at their response. More importantly, it left Naruto wanting to protect and preserve this outstanding group of people and their ideals. We would rather die than give away one of our own. Urza screamed loudly, which sent chills down Naruto's back. Fine, have it your way. You can all die together like the fairy trash you are. Watching a massive cannon barrel extend from the center of the fortress, Naruto could sense a massive buildup of magical energy. He's really trying to kill us. Naruto thought as he watched magic starting to gather at the barrel's edge. Should I use my roar to counter the blast? Fire the Jupiter cannon. Naruto, hesitating on what action to take, was suddenly caught off guard by Urza. who ran forward and used her re-equip magic to transform into a different armor set. That's adamantine armor. Happy declared in surprise, which earned a few gasps of surprise from the veteran members. Don't tell me she plans to stop that. Gray yelled out in worry. Urza, don't. You could die. Stop, this is insane. Everyone stay back. Urza roared as she ignored everyone's protest and used the large shields on her wrists to form a shield in front of herself, causing a massive green magical circle to form. Naruto's eyes went wide as the Jupiter cannon fired a massive blast of magical power, resulting in the blast impacting the defensive magical circle Urza was using. However, even more surprising was how the shield was holding strong against the attack, with only letting a few cracks slip by. Then as the Jupiter's blast died down, Urza's magic circle and armor shattered, which sent the girl flying backwards. Yet before she could hit the ground, Naruto dashed forward and caught Urza in his arms. You were amazing. Naruto complimented as he was inspired by Urza's selfless act to protect her friends. Smiling weakly and looking up at the blonde, Urza blushed. I'm sure you would have done the same. Thanks for catching me. Noticing Urza was completely exhausted from fending off the attack, Naruto merely held the girl close and looked at the fortress. You're giving me too much credit, but now I see why you're called the Queen of Fairies. So you delayed your demise. Ozair roared loudly, which made everyone freeze. It's useless. In exactly 15 minutes I'll fire another shot and finish this once and for all. Damn it. This is not good. We survived one attack thanks to Urza, but we can't stop another. We have to do something. Hearing the cries of worry from his new guild, Naruto slowly walked Urza over to Murahin. Then by handing the girl over, Naruto suddenly turned his body towards the Phantom Lord fortress. A glow in his eyes as his mind was dead set on his next course of action. Naruto, what are you doing? Urza called out. You and everyone in this guild are something special. Naruto began in a low voice while he grabbed his sword tightly. I hardly know any of you, but your ideals are something worth risking everything for. What are you going on about? Gray yelled loudly while a veil of magical power started to radiate from Naruto's body, catching seasoned wizards like Murahin and Urza off guard by the blonde's power. I have no practice using my moon dragon magic like this. Naruto thought to himself as he faced off against the fortress with a steeled resolve. But it will let me fight with some of my true strength without letting everyone know my true power. Gripping his sword and remembering the small lesson Urza had given him over swordsmanship, Naruto knew this wasn't going to be perfect. However, this was the first step towards his new fighting style that he was going to dedicate to protecting his friends. Moon breathing first form. Dark Moon, Evening Palace. Naruto roared as he slashed swiftly in a horizontal crescent motion, creating a singular magical wave of his dragon magic that shot forward at blinding speeds, carving a crescent moon shape horizontally through the building that completely separated the fortress into two separate halves, resulting in the building toppling down on top of itself. Damn. Naruto thought as he looked down at his hands. It was weaker than I thought, but it's a start, I guess. Incredible. Lucy gasped in awe as she had never seen a wizard so powerful before. That's so cool. Natsu yelled with stars in his eyes. You gotta fight me right now. Just who is this kid? Kana mumbled loudly. Who knew he was so strong? Happy yelled. Urza, being supported by Murahin, was now looking at Naruto with admiration. And you say I'm amazing. The knight began with a small smile as her interest with Naruto was growing more and more. Resting his sword onto his shoulder, Naruto looked back to his new guild with a smile. The fight isn't over yet, so do what you gotta do. I'm going for Oze myself. Hell yeah. Natsu roared in a cheerful voice as he jumped by Naruto's side. In that case, leave that bastard Gajiel to me. Walking forward with a cool demeanor, Gray smirked with newfound confidence. Don't go running into danger without me. Naruto nodded as he was okay with letting them deal with the weaker wizards so he could go straight for their master. Well, let's go. Naruto. Urza called out, which made the blonde look at the scarlet-haired beauty. Seeing she had a wide grin and thumbs up. Kick his ass good for me, and I'll treat you to some strawberry cake. Laughing and nodding his head, Naruto gave Urza a small wink. You got yourself a deal. Chapter end and another update down. Thanks for the positive feedback so far and I hope you enjoyed this update. Now for some questions I've gotten. Does Naruto have a dragon form? Naruto has 3 forms, his human form that he normally uses, his hybrid form that's like his own user from One Piece, and finally his full-on dragon form. Can Naruto use moon breathing? It won't work like moon breathing from Demon Slayer, but has very similar functions. Mainly it's a way to combine Naruto's sword style and magic while giving it a name. Will he have other magics to cover up his dragon magic? Right now no, as the main idea is for Naruto to slowly use more and more of his magic until he gets found. Gotta have a believable way for his mother to find him and get involved. Isn't Naruto placing people in danger because of his mom? He doesn't see his mom as a villain who would hurt his friends to get at him. Just a ruthless and scary woman dragon. Is Naruto getting attached too quickly? I tried to show Naruto bonding with the guild while seeing what they stand for. Making him want to protect and be a part of that kind of family. Chapter 3. Dragon vs Saint. With Naruto running along a frozen path in the water made by Gray, Naruto was leading the charge into the crumbled remains of the Phantom Fortress. Keep on your guard. Naruto instructed as he looked over his shoulder to Gray, who was following close behind. We don't know how many forces Phantom brought with them. Hey, this kinda reminds me of that temple I busted up. Natsu laughed out as he was flying overhead thanks to his partner Happy. Naruto's brow twitched at the comment, but before he could reply a large burst of pitch-black shades began to swarm from the fortress, placing the three wizards on guard, but to their surprise the shades simply ignored them and all began to fly for the rest of the guild. What are those? Gray yelled out as he watched the shades descend and start attacking his comrades. It's someone's magic. Naruto answered as he kept his attention on the fortress. By their sheer number I would say they are controlled by Phantom Lord's Master Oze. However, they seem quite weak, so everyone else should be able to hold them off. Well, in that case let's end this war. Natsu yelled loudly as he pointed at a specific location of the fortress. Full speed that way, Happy. Aye sir. Happy shouted before taking off at his top speed, leaving both Naruto and Gray in the dust. Watching Natsu and Happy go, Naruto wished he could use his wings to fly to where he needed to go. Unfortunately, doing so would open up a lot of questions for anyone that would see him do so. A slight annoyance, but Naruto knew he couldn't go too far with dragon abilities. So instead he merely used his heightened sense of smell to track the locations of his enemies, finding several familiar and unfamiliar smells from within the fortress. Gray, Natsu has the right idea. Naruto began as he quickly pointed to a section of the fortress where he was picking up the scent of Juvia. Someone Naruto knew Gray could handle. We should split up. I'll head through the front and you go that way. Nodding his head, Gray made himself a separate path and started to run where Naruto told him to go, leaving the half-dragon alone to head straight into the front of the demolished building, already picking up two unfamiliar scents close by. In fact, one of the people he could smell was standing directly in his path, while the second was trying to conceal themselves. The man in Naruto's eyesight stood confidently with his arms crossed, almost as if he was waiting for someone to come in to challenge him. I don't know who you are, but as a member of the Element 4. I Totemaru will the mage known as Totemaru began before Naruto used his raw speed to blitz the man, catching him completely off guard as Naruto was right within his personal space. I don't have time to waste on you. Naruto mumbled as used his wooden sword to crack the man in the ribsage, making a loud crunching sound ring throughout the area before Totemaru went flying into a pile of rubble, already unconscious before his body could slump over onto the ground. Relaxing his body from his previous attack, Naruto could hear the second individual's near silent movements, along with the growing smell of his scent. Too bad your fight ends here. It's so sad. A voice yelled from behind Naruto, but the blonde simply spun on his heel and kicked his attacker into the ground. Don't think for a second you got the jump on me. Naruto began in a dry voice as he looked down at his attacker with a hollow glare. Realizing the now unconscious man at his feet matched the description of the man responsible for Makarov's condition. The final member of the Elemental 4, Arya. Walking away from Arya with a calm and confident expression, Naruto slowly began to make his way in the direction that he knew Oze was waiting for him. Let's see just how strong a wizard saint really is. Naruto mumbled softly as he walked into the near-demolished fortress with no fear whatsoever. With Gray jumping from one pile of rubble to another, Gray was quickly scaling higher and higher onto the fortress, reaching a height to where he could look down and realize a simple fall could be quite deadly. So using his ice magic he made a few quick supports to ensure the area he was walking on wouldn't collapse under him. Yet as he finished his task, Gray felt a sudden downpour against his skin. Rain. The Maker Wizard mumbled in confusion. Where did this come from? Juvia is a rain woman, so the rain follows Juvia. The voice of Phantom's resident water wizard spoke up as she materialized right before Gray. Quickly striking his Maker magic stance, Gray prepared himself for anything. Well, I don't care what you are. I won't let Phantom Lord get away with hurting my guild. Holding her hand out, Juvia instantly caught Gray within a massive water orb that was suspended in the air. Water lock. The blue-haired woman mumbled softly as she twirled her umbrella. And like that the fight is over. Gritting his teeth and freezing the water, Gray used his raw strength to shatter the ice and free himself, stunning Juvia as she watched a half-naked boy who was surrounded by tiny shimmering ice crystals with a large blush. If that's how you want to play. Gray yelled before summoning a massive hammer over his head. Ice make. Hammer. Swiping her hand upward, Juvia quickly used a sharp arc of water to slice through Gray's ice. Water slicer. The water woman yelled before firing off more attacks straight at Gray. Ice make. Shield. Gray called out as he slammed his hands onto the ground and summoned a massive ice shield construct to protect himself. Yet as Juvia's attack slammed into Grey's ice, the shield began to crack and the unstable ground they were standing on began to shake, making both wizards slightly sway to keep their balance. Damn, this place is dangerous. Grey mumbled as he ran away from his shield and dropped into his maker stance. Ice make. Lance. Water slicer. Juvia yelled back as her water slammed into Grey's ice, which cancelled out each other's spells. However, a few stray ice lances and streams of Juvia's water impacted against the building, further adding to its current unstable condition. Ice make Grey began but stopped the moment the ground beneath him collapsed, forcing Grey to act quickly and freeze the area and him to give him a quick and sturdy foothold. However, across from his location, Juvia wasn't as lucky to have magic to stop the ground beneath her from collapsing. So having little room to stand, Juvia stumbled to the edge and realized there was nothing she could do except fall and accept her fate. A fate like any other drop of water from the sky, which was to fall against the ground with a splat. This is Juvia's end. The Rain Woman thought as she fell off the building. Grey, watching the girl close her eyes, ran forward without thinking and reached out with one hand to grab Juvia while using his other hand to latch onto the building's edge. Using every ounce of his strength to hold onto Juvia the best he could. "Why, you saved me?" Juvia gasped in surprise, while Grey gritted his teeth. "We might be enemies, but that doesn't mean you deserve to die." Grey yelled back as he pulled Juvia up against his chest. "Just hold onto my neck so I can climb back up." Wrapping herself around Grey with hearts in her eyes at her savior, Juvia felt a tightness within her heart she had never felt before. Meanwhile, the rain overhead stopped and the sun began to shine down onto the pair. With Natsu, Agile. Natsu roared with rage as he flew into a broken window with Happy, coming into a small room where his fellow dragon slayer was waiting. "Well, if it isn't the salamander." Gagil laughed loudly as he punched his hands together. "I was hoping you would. Why do I smell a dragon?" Fire leaked from his mouth as he pointed at Gagil with an annoyed expression. "That's just that jerk Naruto. He smells funny like that, but don't worry about him. Your fight is with me. TCH, whatever. I'll kick his ass after I'm done with you." Gagil taunted, which sent Natsu over the edge in anger. "Like hell you will." Natsu roared loudly as he ran forward and clashed fists with Gagil, starting the fight between the fire and iron dragon slayers. But Selene, floating high above the ground, Selene glared at the massive monument carved into the mountain before her. A small sting of pain within her chest as she saw the massive stone likeness of the only human she had ever loved. It would seem things have changed in the last 19 years. Selene mumbled softly as her eyes drifted away from Minato's face and looked at the two new heads that followed after her dead husband. If I am not mistaken, those faces are little Tsunade and Kakashi. Never would have guessed one of Minato's brats would have followed his footsteps. Looking around the village of Konoha, Selene even had to admit the layout of buildings seemed completely different than she remembered. Almost as if the village itself had been demolished and rebuilt from scratch. Yet as Selene observed her surroundings, a faint smile of amusement graced her lips as she noticed a few Konoha shinobi gathering around her on the building rooftops. "Who are you?" A Konoha shinobi with pitch-black pineapple-shaped hair yelled out, while a blonde female and slightly overweight boy flanked his sides. "Oh my." Selene laughed out with a condescending sneer as she placed a hand to her cheek. "By your looks and smell I assume you're the next generation of the Ino Shikacho. I wonder if your parents ever spoke of me?" Instead of replying, the teen clicked his teeth, trying his hardest to figure out the woman's identity. However, even with his superior intellect he couldn't place a finger on who this woman was. Something that put him on edge as she knew who he and his comrades were so easily. "Yo Shikamaru, what's going on? Do you Ino and Choji need some backup?" Another shinobi yelled out as a new group of 3 jumped by the now named Ino, Choji and Shikamaru. "We don't know yet, Kiba, but be careful." Shikamaru replied as he kept his eyes on Selene. "We don't know what she wants. But now we have an Inyazuka, Aburam and Hyuga." Selene giggled out to the group's surprise as she was easily able to identify the new group just by looks and smell like the group before. "What's next, Enichiha?" "Selene." A voice yelled out loudly, which surprised a group of Konoha shinobi by the arrival of their Hokage, who landed protectively in front of the group of young shinobi. Selene on the other hand merely grinned as she looked down at the man dressed in the all too familiar Hokage robes. Well, if it isn't little Kakashi all grown up and a Hokage no less. Showing visible signs of fear that was incredibly rare for the seasoned warrior. Kakashi swallowed the lump within his throat and looked at the woman he always remembered seeing with his master. "I haven't seen you in nearly 2 decades. What brings you back to the village?" "I've been searching for something I've lost." Selene began in a vague tone as she floated to be eye level with Kakashi, but kept her distance. "I started my search 1 year ago with Inelentier and then moved to Adolas when I didn't find what I was looking for. After another failed search I went to this dimension and again didn't find what I was looking for, leaving me to conclude that Earthland would be where I would find what I lost." "And just what have you lost?" Kakashi asked with an air of caution, knowing full well the danger of the dragon before him. I am Minato's child, Naruto Namikaze. Selene explained with a rather bitter voice, as she was still furious over her only son running away from home. Sensei's son. Kakashi gasped in a soft almost unheard voice, but Selene heard the man easily with her hearing. Yes, the little youngling ran away from home without my permission. Selene explained as she crossed her arms over her chest. Honestly, I would have never imagined he would be hiding in my home dimension, but my Naruto has always been unpredictable. If you know that your son isn't here, why are you within the village? Kakashi asked. With a vile gleam in her eyes, Selene placed a finger on her cheek and giggled in a rather condescending tone. Now why are you so afraid of me, little Kakashi? Let me guess, you're thinking I'll do something along the lines of destroying this village for fun. Or maybe even revenge for what happened to Minato. Please, the little brat Hiruzen thought the same thing, but I have no interest in damaging something Minato sacrificed himself for. Well, I, like the late third Hokage, know of your destructive capabilities and anger. That's fair, I did leave a tiny mess in Adola's when I couldn't find my son. Though little Hiruzen finally found his grave. I swear you humans are the most fragile creatures. The young shinobi who didn't know anything about Selene were confused at how she referred to their former elderly leader as little and called them humans like she was something different. Yet Kakashi knew better that the woman before him was a very dangerous dragon who was a few hundred years old. He was killed by Orochimaru a few years ago. Kakashi explained in a dry voice. Yes, that's very sad, but let's get to the reason I'm here. Selene began in a tone that showed no sympathy or respect for the third Hokage's fate. You see, I can't exactly go searching for my son in Earthland for a few reasons. First off, there are a number of dragons who are just as powerful as me. So if I go wandering around, I'll attract their unwanted attention long before I find my son. Thinking about it now, that's probably another reason Naruto decided to hide within Earthland. In fact, if I know my son, and trust me I do, he's probably hiding within Agnologia's domain of Ishkur. Knowing I would never step within those lands again because of that bastard. So you need someone to find your son for you. Kakashi mumbled softly, which made Selene grin. Very good, Kakashi, I knew you were always the brightest of Minato's brat students. The dragon complimented as she got a rather dangerous gleam within her eyes. I'm wanting your best trackers and warriors to track down my son and bring him back to me. And if we refuse? Kakashi asked. The lifeless expression appearing on her face, Selene glared at Kakashi with eyes filled with nothing except wrath. Followed by the bright sun overhead suddenly vanishing to reveal a hauntingly dark night sky with nothing except a bright full moon cascading over Selene's figure. I'd leave another tiny mess like I did in Adola's. Selene threatened in a hollow voice as her magic began to leak from her body. Then I'll form a team immediately. Kakashi replied as he knew his options were either to help the woman or fight her. You'll just have to help my shinobi reach Earthland to find your son. Selene smirked. That won't be an issue, but I'll give you a few days to find your best shinobi. I'm not an unreasonable woman after all, but I'll be in the local hot spring to refresh myself while I wait. The moon dragon explained before she vanished right before everyone's eyes with impressive speed. Allowing the sun and light to return to the village overhead. Sighing to himself, Kakashi turned around to find 6 young shinobi all looking at him for answers. In fact, Ino was the first person to voice the group's questions. Kakashi-sensei, just who was that? Your generation doesn't know of her, but she's an incredibly powerful and dangerous woman. Who was the wife of my sensei, our 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze? So she's a friend of the village? Choji asked, which made Kakashi close his eyes. She was never loyal to Konoha, only Minato-sensei. When he died sealing Kurama with the Reaper death seal, Selene took her newborn son and left the village behind for good. Or until today. Shikamaru folded his arms and lifted his brow. I've never seen you act like this before, just how dangerous is Selene? Far too dangerous to have as an enemy. Kakashi explained in a dry voice as he started to walk away. I want you all to gather in my office for a full briefing. I'm going to go find Team 7. With Naruto walking through what was once a large open area of the fortress, Naruto looked around and saw piles of rubble cutting off many of the doorways. Leaving nowhere in the large area to go except for straight ahead. Yet right in front of Naruto was a large set of stairs that once led up to a higher floor. However, these stairs now stopped at a large gaping hole in the fortress. A large hole that a single individual was standing at with a rather sour look directed right at Naruto. I take it you're Oze? Naruto called out as he held his sword out with confidence. That's Master Oze to you, worm. Oze snarled as he started to descend down the stairs. A dark aura of magical energy already engulfing his body as he grew closer and closer to Naruto. Actually, I think you're the guy who is about to be unconscious at my feet. Naruto quipped back with a light laugh. Holding his finger out and concentrating his magic for an attack, Oze didn't even dignify Naruto with a response. Instead he started to fire blasts of pitch black magic from his fingertip right at Naruto. making the young half-dragon react by jumping side to side while using his wooden sword to swat away any of the magic projectiles that he couldn't outright dodge with his speed. Then coming to a sudden stop, Naruto gathered his magic before swinging his sword in a crescent motion towards Oze. Moon breathing first form. Dark Moon, Evening Palace. Naruto screamed with confidence as he sent his new attack straight for Oze. However, the seasoned guild master didn't hold the title of Wizard Saint for nothing and effortlessly held the palm of his hand forward, already conjuring a massive swirling vortex of dark purple magical energy. Dead wave. Oze yelled loudly as he sent a massive purple beam to collide with Naruto's attack, resulting in the two attacks cancelling each other out in a massive explosion. Yet as dust and debris filled the area, Oze quickly displayed his battle experience by firing more blasts of his magic to catch Naruto off guard thanks to the lack of proper vision. Shit. Naruto cursed as he was forced onto the defensive by Oze's tactic and quickly started to run away from the man's onslaught of attacks. What's the matter, you fairy trash? Oze taunted as he tracked Naruto's movements and followed the blonde with a continuation of attacks. You're not all high and mighty now. Growling in frustration, Naruto did a quick aerial cartwheel and slashed his sword forward. Moon breathing first form. Dark Moon, Evening Palace. Rolling his eyes, Oze countered the spell once more with his magic. Is that all you've got? A single mediocre attack. Landing onto his feet in a crouched position, Naruto narrowed his eyes. Now realizing a man of Oze's caliber is much different than any wizard he has fought so far. So his current style of improv techniques with his true magic mixed in might not get the job done. However, Naruto was very resourceful and still had plenty of ideas to test out. I'm only getting started. Naruto replied as he tightly gripped his sword. Useless arrogance. Oze retorted with his hand held outward as he concentrated a vortex of dark purple magic into his hand. Dark Pulse. Dashing forward at the giant explosion of purple magic flying towards him, Naruto flipped into the air and swung his sword downward in a series of crescent-shaped strikes before yelling out. Moon breathing second form. Pearl Flower Moongazing. Using the dozens of small slashes of moon magic that discharged from his sword to propel himself forward while at the same time countering Oze's spell, resulting in Naruto soaring high above Oze's current location. You're wide open. Naruto roared loudly as he slashed his sword in two powerful crescent-shaped motions. Moon breathing third form. Loathsome Moon, Chains. Oze gritted his teeth at the two massive curved-shaped magical projectiles, forcing the man to hold both his hands into the air. Dead wave. A massive explosion rocking the area, Naruto was thrown back from the force of the blast, forcing the half-dragon to brace himself before making a hard landing onto the ground below. You're an interesting wizard to be able to keep up with me. Oze began as he watched Naruto stand to his feet without any real damage taken. To think that bastard Makarov had someone of your caliber within his pathetic guild. Well, I'm a little new to the guild. Naruto replied. Then why not join a real guild? Help me finish off the rest of Fairy Tail and I'll give you a spot in Phantom Lord. His eyes glowing a deep shade of blue, Naruto gave the man a toothy smirk as Urza's words echoed within his mind. I'd rather die. Lifting a hand to his eyes and shaking his head in disappointment, Oze quickly moved his hand and revealed his now black eyes to Naruto, allowing the blonde to smell the rather putrid magic that was radiating from Oze. Then die. Oze screamed as he dashed straight for Naruto, taking the blonde by surprise at his sudden shift to close quarters fighting as Oze was within his personal space in the blink of an eye. Naruto, trying to react, started to lift his sword to defend himself, but his technique was still unrefined. So instead of blocking Oze's advance, Naruto was unable to stop the man from holding his hand right at Naruto's stomach. Dead wave. Oze yelled before blasting Naruto point blank with his dark purple magic, sending the blonde soaring through several walls with the force of the blow, eventually coming to a stop by crashing into a new room where he had landed right in the middle of both Gajiel and Natsu. Shit, that actually stung a bit. Naruto mumbled softly as he slowly got back onto his feet, realizing rather quickly that he had crashed right in the middle of Natsu's fight and all eyes were on him. Hey Naruto, what are you doing here? Natsu yelled in annoyance as he got the full attention of the half-dragon, trying to take Oze down. Well, looks like that's going well. Natsu fired back, obviously annoyed by Naruto placing a pause on his fight with Gajiel by his sudden arrival. His brow twitching at the comment, Naruto noticed Natsu had taken much more damage than his opponent. Well, looks like you're getting your ass handed to you. Gajiel laughed loudly while Natsu growled in anger. It's not fair. I don't have any fire to eat and this guy has been eating every piece of metal in sight. Naruto rolled his eyes at the Dragon Slayer's excuse, but Natsu mentioning fire did give Naruto an idea to try. Well, I can supply some fire, but I don't think you can handle it. So I think I'll just share my fire with Gajiel and Oze. Glaring at the teen who smelled exactly like a dragon, Gajiel morphed one of his arms into an iron buzzsaw. You're talking big game for a piece of fairy trash. Turning to lock eyes with Gagiel, Naruto held his sword tightly before igniting the blade in a wide inferno of bright white fire. Moon breathing fourth form. Naruto mumbled as he swung his sword in a full circular motion and screamed at the top of his lungs. Blooming moonlit flame. Gagiel, taken by surprise, lifted his arms to protect himself, but he couldn't do much. Since the massive twister of fire that resembled a full moon engulfed his body and forced a prideful wizard to yell in pain. Considering the sheer heat of Naruto's fire was much more intense than what Natsu had been using. What is this power? Gagiel thought to himself with panic as Naruto appeared within the flames with his sword held behind his back. Just who is this guy? Moon breathing first form. Dark moon, evening palace. Naruto yelled loudly as he slashed his sword right into Gagiel's stomach, sending the wizard flying back unconscious and snuffling out his white flames with the backlash of his swing. Natsu, watching Gagiel be defeated, merely looked at Naruto with awe, wondering if his new friend was stronger than people like Urza or Laxus. Yet he didn't think of questions like that for long, as he realized what Naruto had done. Wait a minute. You totally just hijacked my fight. Natsu growled in anger as Happy ran to his side. Natsu, at least we beat him. Naruto nodded and rested his sword onto his shoulder and looked at the hole he was sent through. Finding Oze was slowly stepping his way into the room. But there is still him. I'm glad you didn't forget about me. Oze replied before his hands began to glow a dark purple. Happy, take Natsu back to the guild. Naruto ordered in a stern voice as he glared down at Oze. Like hell I want to. You're only in the way. Naruto yelled loudly as he cut Natsu off and swung his sword forward. Moon breathing first form. Dark moon, evening palace. Smirking at Naruto's attack, Oze merely held his hands up. Dead wave. An explosion rocked the fortress as the attacks collided with one another, which caused Natsu's eyes to go wide at the power Naruto and Oze were throwing around so casually. Listen Natsu, don't take this the wrong way, but I can't fight this bastard and worry about my friends at the same time. Naruto explained as he didn't take his eyes off of Oze for a second. Fine. Natsu mumbled in a low and disheartened voice as Happy latched onto his back. Just win this fight for Gramps and everyone, okay? His eyes glowing with a dangerous gleam, Naruto merely nodded without hesitation. I plan on it. Oze pointed the palm of his hand at Natsu and Happy before giving a vile smirk. Don't think you can just leave. Naruto dashing forward closed the distance between himself and Oze in a fraction of a second, slashing at the man with a quick strike that forced him to jump backwards to avoid the attack. And don't you think for a second. Naruto began in a low and powerful voice as he positioned his sword high above his shoulder, already getting himself ready for another attack. That I would stand by and let you hurt my friend. You're an arrogant brat. Oze replied with a sneer as he watched Natsu and Happy fly off. But I'll be more than glad to break you along with the rest of your guild. I'd like to see you try. Naruto challenged. Chuckling in a low voice, Oze merely held both his hands outward. Dead wave. Jumping forward and into the air, Naruto quickly swung his sword in a flurry of downward strikes. Moon breathing second form. Pearl flower moongazing. Naruto yelled before slicing through Oze's attack and twisting his torso before slashing his sword in two fast arcs. Moon breathing third form. Loathsome moon, chains. Arc pulse. Oze roared loudly as he used his magic to once again cancel Naruto's attacks, resulting in yet another large explosion that covered the room in smoke and dust, making the guild leader smirk at the outcome of their spells colliding. I can keep this up all day, but I wonder how much longer you can. Oze began to taunt, but was surprised by the tip of Naruto's sword shooting out of the smoke and jabbing into his stomach. Then the wooden blade continued to grow and shove Oze back into the wall behind. I wouldn't get ahead of yourself. Naruto yelled back as he used his raw strength to drag Oze up the wall and along the ceiling, forcing the man into a position where he was right above Naruto. Then as he retracted his sword to its original size, Naruto watched Oze fall forward with a calculated gaze and covered his sword with white flames before jumping into the air and yelling. Moon breathing fourth form. Blooming moonlit flame. Oze, having no time to react, was quickly blasted with a pillar of white hot flames, scorching the wizard as even a man of his caliber felt overwhelmed by the sheer heat of the flames Naruto was using. Yet the young half-dragon was far from done with his assault. Moon breathing third form. Loathsome moon, chains. Naruto screamed with all his might before slashing his sword in two crescent-shaped swings, hitting Oze with not one, but two magical projectiles in the center of his chest, forming a large X that quickly expelled blood from the man's torso. Floating high above the ground and watching Oze recoil backwards, Naruto grinned at his work. How was that for fairy trash? Suddenly snapping his head at Naruto with a pitch-black glare of pure hatred, Oze merely held his hands outward and summoned a swirl of the most vile-smelling black magic Naruto had ever smelled. Arc extinction. Oze mumbled in a low monotone voice as he unleashed a dark black beam of magic straight onto Naruto, who had no way to escape thanks to his current position in the air. This could be bad. Naruto began in a low voice as even he had to admit the magic he was feeling was quite powerful and could deal serious damage. Yet as the attack was mere inches from connecting with his body, Naruto simply sighed and blurred out of sight in an unimaginable burst of speed. In fact, Naruto moved so fast Oze didn't even see the young half-dragon move. From Oze's point of view, all he saw was his spell rocket downward before piercing the ground below and shooting straight through the floor below, making a large hole that went completely through the fortress and pleasing Oze with the results. To think Makarov had someone so strong within his guild. Oze spat in disgust as he tried to find any signs of Naruto, but smirked as he couldn't see anything. A true waste of potential, but that's Makarov's fault for bringing you into a weak guild. The hand suddenly pressing itself lightly against Oze's back, the eyes of the wizard saint went wide in disbelief. You know, I wanted to avoid doing this, but you truly are a monster. The voice of Naruto began from behind Oze, as his body and current appearance were hidden from the man. Something that was good for Naruto, as he was currently flying above Oze with two large white wings, while his slitted blue eyes merely watched the man with a carefree expression. Glad Oze couldn't see any of his dragononic features like the small patches of white scale patterns on his skin or the large horn protruding from the side of his head. It was stupid of me to think I could beat someone of your caliber with a fighting style I made within a day. I'll have to train harder in the future. What are you, Moonlight Palm? Naruto cut in with an emotionless voice as he expelled a white beam of moonlight from his hand that sent Oze soaring into the ground below, knocking the man unconscious and leaving Naruto floating above with his sword held by his side. I'm just another member of Fairy Tail. The half-dragon declared before floating down to the ground below and transforming back into his human form. Then by rubbing his neck and stretching his aching muscles, Naruto took a seat on the ground several feet away from Oze, taking a moment to look at his wooden sword with a rather displeased expression. I need to get better with my new fighting style. I can't keep reverting to my dragon abilities in a pinch. Swinging his sword forward and stopping midair to observe the wooden blade, Naruto inspected the magical tool carefully. Maybe getting a real blade made for slicing or amplifying magic would be helpful. Pondering over the idea, Naruto even thought asking Urza for advice would help, considering the girl to his knowledge had a rather large arsenal of magical weapons and armors. They were this way. The loud voice that Naruto recognized as Natsu reached his ears, making the victorious blonde look over to the demolished remnants of what was an entrance. Finding not only Natsu running into the room, but also Happy, Urza, Elfman and Murahin. Yo. Naruto greeted with a large smile as he waved at the awestruck Fairy Tail wizards. Is that Phantom's master? Happy gasped. Yup. Wait, you defeated Oze by yourself. Murahin began in disbelief as she looked at the beaten and bloody man. He's a wizard saint. And I can see why. Naruto laughed in response. He was a tough bastard to take down. What a man. Elfman mumbled in a rather impressed voice, while Natsu quickly jumped forward. Okay Naruto, let's fight here and now. Natsu yelled loudly as he started to bounce on his heels. You owe me a fight after all. Urza sighed and smacked Natsu hard against the back of his head. You will do no such thing, Naruto just got done fighting someone just as strong as the master. Give him time to recover before annoying him with your little challenges. Laughing loudly at how Natsu was scolded by Urza, Naruto merely gave the beautiful scarlet-haired knight a large grin. You're one to talk about recovering. You should be back at the guild resting after saving everyone earlier. Walking slowly to Naruto, Urza simply extended a hand out to the blonde. I'm fine. In fact, I was rushing here to help you, but you didn't need any of us. Accepting Urza's hand, Naruto was pulled to his feet and into the personal space of the young redhead that had caught his eye. All the same, I appreciate you worrying about me. Blushing by the boy's words and his closeness, Urza looked to the side so Naruto couldn't see her flustered face. Well, since you beat Oze, I guess I owe you that piece of strawberry cake. Laughing with a tone that sent chills down Urza's back, Naruto merely nodded. It's a date then. Steam flying out of her ears, Urza looked at the rather attractive blue-eyed boy in shock. Date. The normally confident girl stammered nervously, which made Murahin giggle. Natsu tilted his head as he watched a girl he spent years terrified of. Urza's acting kinda funny. Hearing Natsu, Murahin gave the boy a pat on the shoulder and continued her giggling, finding her former rival's behavior amusing. You'll understand one day, Natsu, when you become a real man. Elfman added. Aye. Happy chimed in. Ignoring the side conversation, Naruto nudged his head to the exit of the room. We should head back to everyone else. Urza nodded in response, but suddenly felt her legs buckle and her body drop. However, before she could fall, Naruto quickly caught her within his arms and laughed, only adding to the girl's blush as she was being supported in Naruto's arms. Well, it looks like you're in worse shape than you thought. Naruto pointed out as he brought Urza up and into his arms bridal style. What are you doing? Urza replied in an embarrassed voice that made Naruto snicker. Well, I can't have you collapsing on me, so I'll just carry you back to the guild. Naruto explained. No, it's fine. I can walk. Urza protested, but Naruto wasn't hearing any of it. Marahan, walking forward, waved her fingers at Urza with an innocent smile. Well, if Urza doesn't want to be carried by our guild's hero, I'll volunteer. Immediately snapping her eyes at her former rival, Urza glared at Marahan with a rather territorial glare. Even going as far to slightly inch herself closer to Naruto almost on instinct alone. Now what's going on here? An all too familiar voice called out, which surprised everyone including Naruto. Master. The collective fairy tale wizards yelled out as they watched their aged leader approach their location. Overjoyed to see his appearance and health look just like it did before the failed raid on Phantom Lord. I'm sorry for being late. Makarov began as his eyes looked over the defeated bodies of Oze and Gagiel. Taking note that both were very much alive but had taken quite the thrashing. However, it would seem I wasn't needed in the end. Happy flew upwards in joy at seeing the master awake and okay. Yup. Urza saved everyone from the Jupiter cannon and Naruto beat Gagiel and Oze by himself. Hey, I roughed Gagiel up before Naruto came in and ruined my fight. Natsu added in through a fit of rage. If anything, Gagiel was too tired from the beating I gave him to keep going. Whatever you say, Natsu. Happy mumbled in response, while Makarov merely walked over to Naruto. Is this true, my boy? You defeated Oze by yourself. Still having Urza within his arms, Naruto simply nodded at the master's question. Yeah, I did. He didn't go down easy, but in the end I was able to beat him. Hearing what Naruto had done and watching how protectively he was holding Urza, Makarov had to admit he still had many questions about Naruto's strength, but he fully trusted the blonde as a member of his family. Realizing in only a short time that Naruto was a trustworthy and kind person. You have my gratitude, Naruto, I couldn't be more happy to have you in my guild. Makarov began from the bottom of his heart, which made Naruto smile. But I fear now that the war is over, the Magic Council will get involved. A major headache for me and most likely you as well, Naruto. Why? The half-dragon asked. You defeated a wizard saint. Makarov explained as he pointed at Oze's unconscious body. That's a big deal, and I'm sure the council will want an audience with you. Well, I'll do whatever you think is best. Naruto replied without hesitation, which made both Urza and Makarov smile wide. I wouldn't worry too much about them, I won't let those old farts on the council boss around or do anything to my children. Naruto nodded. Well, in that case, let's head back to the guild. Naruto proposed as he slightly held Urza up. Someone needs her rest before our date. It's not a date. Urza groaned in an embarrassed voice as she used her hands to hide her blush. We are just eating cake. Urza's no fun. Marahan giggled as she jokingly winked at Naruto. I'll go on a date with you anytime. And I wanna fight you right now, Naruto. Natsu added in loudly, which caused Urza to give both her friends a death glare. Both of you stop it already. Urza ordered in a stern voice that made Naruto snicker. Ah, don't be so hard on them, Urza. Naruto began in a carefree tone that slightly calmed the girl's building rage. Unfortunately, her rage was about to return from Naruto's rather foxy and mischievous grin. At least they don't perv on me while I'm in the shower. Oh my, Urza, you naughty girl. Marahan giggled in a teasing voice. Did you like what you saw? A vein popping on her head, Urza began to pound her fist against Naruto's chest as he laughed in response. For the last time, it was an accident. Don't go telling people I'm a pervert. Fine, I'll keep our little shower meetings a secret. Naruto replied with a snicker and wink, which made Urza freeze with a large blush. Yet after a small second she began to hit the blonde once again. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Urza roared loudly. Natsu, watching how Naruto only continued to laugh at Urza, leaned down to Happy and brought a hand to his partner's ear. You know, maybe I don't wanna fight Naruto. Anyone who isn't afraid of Urza is someone I don't wanna mess with. That's a real man for you. Elfman added. Watching his wizards all interact with one another, Makarov couldn't help himself from laughing to himself. Glad he was the one responsible for overseeing this generation of fairy tale wizards. Hoping to himself that he would even be able to do so for many more years to come. What if Naruto is sealed in the moon fairy tale? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys next video.